Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits tied to November 20th to November 26th. We are going into a holiday week. We are going into a week of transitions. Many of us just had something presented to us over the course of the last week that it has taken a few days to let that conversation, let that event, let that situation, let that moment fully sink in. And as we get into this next week, some element of what just came to light, what just came to the surface, where we're about to hit this transition, because the transition amps up this week. Wherever it's about to hit, there will be a pressure test. In many, many ways, there's going to be a pressure test. Now, for those that have booked readings, what I'm about to go over, I'm letting everybody know that I'm going to go over this next part in more detail in your individual readings. For those that have not had a reading yet, that's fine. Just understand that whenever I do the episodes in the channel, the thing is like, I'm doing it based off of a universal idea. This is why I give so many broad ranges in my examples, as opposed to like breaking it down based off of the rising sign. As we go into this week, the big energy that we need to take a look at, if you want to do this against your own chart and just do your own version of research, that's great. The thing that you need to look at this week is, what does Jupiter rule in your chart? Jupiter is the only ruler of Sagittarius. Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces. What do these two signs rule over in your chart? What houses are they associated with? Add an extra one to that. Where is your natal Jupiter? Because elements of wherever your natal Jupiter is in your chart, as well as the signs of Pisces and Sagittarius, this is going to be our hot button energy for the next 2 months. And when I say the next 2 months, I literally mean the rest of November, all of December, and the first parts of January. We're going into a very transitional energy. And based off of what just came to light this week, what has been presented, where we have had certain amounts of potential frustration, where we've had a shock to our system, where we were able to recognize our purpose. Some of us had an opportunity come to light this week, and we had a purpose put in front of us. For some people, it was our desires. I desire for this to be better. We need to make this work. We need to do better. We need to change up our game. We need to change up the strategy. We have to do something different, because if we keep doing things the same way, we're just living in that moment of insanity. Insanity is over. I don't want to be insane. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to fight all the time. I don't want to be in this situation anymore. I have to make a change. Over the course of this last week, either in the presence of the new moon in Scorpio, that new moon that was in the opposition to Uranus, that new moon that was in a conjunction to Mars, that happened on Monday. So based off that new moon's energy on Monday and the Mars rebirth energy that perfected for many of us Friday evening, a lot more of us Saturday, in that overnight span of Friday night into Saturday, we had something over the course of the last week that presented itself. It came to the surface. It came to light. Some of us seen this as, again, purpose, desire, opportunity. Some of us seen this as a disruption. We felt that disruption in our body. We seen a disruption going on in the real world around us. We had something that got rattled. I seen elements of both, like this weekend. There's a city in Iceland that's being evacuated right now because there's about to be a volcano. That's gonna make this week really interesting if that the volcano thing comes out. I haven't looked at the astrocartography in a long time, but that's interesting. So there's a city in Iceland that's being evacuated because there's about to be a volcanic eruption. There is pressure being put on a lot of these like candidates that are trying to run for office because we all love our politics. I'm not a big political person, but I like to showcase the real world things. Some of us, we've had something going on with an elder. Now, this is not necessarily a new thing. I've been talking about the elder situation for months. And we have some element in the turnaround. But the thing is, Saturn's still in its turnaround energy. Saturn is still at 0 degrees. And as this week progresses, the sun is going to go into Sagittarius and it's going to square Saturn. The sun is going to go into Jupiter's sign and square Saturn in Jupiter's other sign. And then a few days later, Mars is going to go into Jupiter's sign and square Saturn in Jupiter's other sign. There will be a lot of boastful activity to this week, but I gotta be honest, there can also be a lot of hot-headed energy, especially around the holiday. And part of that's going to be because Mars is going to be in a fire sign. Not its own. That's okay. Mercury is also in a fire sign. And remember, Mercury rules our logical brain because Mercury's in Sagittarius. Mercury's in its detriment. So some people in their moment of trying to be logical is going to put their foot in their mouth. In addition to that, as we actually go through Thursday and Friday, so for those that are in the United States, that's Thanksgiving, that's Black Friday. The moon is going to be in Aries during that time too. There will be a lot of commotion. There will be a lot of tension. There will be a lot of activity. We're going to have some very interesting energies going into the holiday. The bigger your family get together or your Friendsgiving get together, the bigger that is. The more likely the hot-headed energy can kind of click in. The thing about this particular holiday, though, this particular week, is that what we're going into this week, for many of us, we're seeing that transition. And I'm going to say this in a couple of different ways. We're either going to be seeing the transition in the sense of like, we know that this is going to be one of our last holiday seasons with Grandpa. We might have 1 or 2 more years with this energy, and then we're not going to have it anymore. And speaking from experience, once you lose that person that is like the glue of your family, no family gathering will ever be the same, and no matter how hard you try. No matter how hard. Because I've been there. The dynamic shifts. The reason we go, that person we want to see, that person we want to spend the most time with, shifts. Now, some of us, we're not losing, we're gaining. We're gaining something new in our traditions. We're gaining someone new. Some of us, the kids, have all grown up and they've moved out and they've been doing adulthood things, and now they're going to come home with their significant other for the first time. Dad's not excited to meet the new boyfriend or the new girlfriend or the new whoever, whatever your pronoun is. Mom is not excited to share her baby boy, because a lot of you moms are like that. Some of us, we have dealt with loss over the course of this year. And the one thing that you have to all admit, we can at least say it on the big scale because it was very big in the news during that time. There's been a lot of loss in the last year. There was especially a lot of loss while Venus was going through Leo. That was a good 4-month span that I feel like every other day on the news, we had like a public figure in multiple different like genres of public figures that they passed away. We also had a lot of public figures that had sudden health issues and health concerns that came to light during that time. And some element of where we go over the next few months is going to add more pressure to those people. Some of us were going into this holiday having just suffered a loss, knowing that this holiday is going to be different. And if you have someone in your life that they have just suffered a loss, if you are one of those people that has just suffered a loss, the first holiday is the worst. It is the worst, it is the hardest, and it is the heaviest. And that too can play a part into some of the hot-headed energies going into this week. Some of us, we've got that person in the family. They're trying to step up and go, okay, this is how we're going to do it this year. And you're going to come over here and I'm going to make this dish. Like, no, that's not, you don't make the dish right. Grandma made it this way. You don't make it right. Don't make it. I'll make it. Well, I don't, it turns into the thing. It turns into the thing. Expect those things. Expect some levels of confusion, expect some levels of frustration, expect some levels of tension and pressure, especially as we start the week, as well as how the week continues. Now, in some ways, the way we start the week, there can be like, the pressure will come in layers. And I do mean we start the week tied to some kind of pressure because of what's going to happen in the overnight hours of Sunday going into Monday. And that is, we're going to have our quarter moon. But the sun is still in a conjunction to Mars. And right as that quarter moon perfects, it's also going to then change signs and make a conjunction to Saturn. There are some elements of Monday that is going to be the first layer, the first round, the first hit of pressure. A first hit that is going to have a continuous feed going through this week. Now, the other thing I want to make clear is that there's something that has come through my meditation. And once the moon goes into Aries, so I'm saying this part from the beginning, from the beginning, knowing that I'll be saying it again once we get into the charts here in a minute. Whatever comes to light after the moon's conjunction to Neptune, after the moon goes into Aries, and we go through the moon in Aries, there's something about those few days that it tells me we get the first glimpse or the first inkling, the first idea of where we're going to see the gains. We get something in the theme, we get something in the energy, we get something. There's going to be something in those few days of the moon going through Aries where we're talking about what's changed. We're talking about what's come to light. We're talking about our goals. We're talking about this new part of the ambition, this new direction, this new thing that we're going to do. We're talking about something. I'm just going to go with talking for now. The activity around gives foreshadowing to where we will have the gains, where we will have the adjustments into the next eclipse season. There is something about the moon in Aries this week that gives us a glimpse of what happens, where we have our shifts, where we have new perspective, given that Rahu is the one in Aries right now. I'm saying gains because it's the head of the dragon, and the head of the dragon consumes. Give me, gimme, gimme, gimme. I'm a greedy baby. So I'm saying gains, but not everybody's going to feel it as gains. Some people are going to feel like they're being consumed by something. But there is still something this week, now that we've just gone through the Mars rebirth, while Mars is in that square to Saturn, there is something in that energy, once the moon goes into Aries, that it gives us a glimpse, an inkling, a foreshadowing of what comes through an eclipse season. And eclipse season, the next one, is going to be late March into April. So some of those things that I just covered, if you guys have a reading already booked with me, I will be covering that in a little bit more detail in your individual readings, just so everybody's aware. But aside from that, not everybody's getting readings. Some people just want to do everything on your own. That's fine too. Do your thing. I'm just letting you know what I'm picking up on. Because a lot of people, especially if you are intuitive like me, like, we seen the physical this last week. We seen the physical change. We seen the physical adjustment. We seen the physical in some way, something going on in our real world, but some of us, we saw the change intuitively. We felt the change intuitively. I shouldn't say saw. Well, some people saw. For some of you, your ways of getting your messages is through synchronistic patterns. So like you saw a difference in your angel numbers all of a sudden. You saw an extra number come in. You saw a new pattern starting to form. You suddenly saw, like I saw 9. Like, I don't know. Everything started to total up to 9 for like a good 2 or 3 days. Like every time I turn around, I had a number 18. I had a number 27. I had literally the number 9 in front of me. I'm like, okay, 9, got it. Thank you. Got it. Some of us saw the synchronistic pattern change. Some of us, we got our dream messages that came through. Some of us got our music downloads. Remember, I've told you guys I do a lot. I get a lot of meditative messages through song. Some of us felt the downloads this week. The more intuitive you are, the more in tune with your intuition, those things came through. And for a lot of you, they either came through during the new moon, which was Monday, or they came through this weekend during the Mars rebirth while Mars and the Sun were in that trine with Neptune. We got some type of inspiration. We got some type of understanding. We were in a moment where some elements of the weekend felt like there was a fog. But after we had those moments of overthinking and overdoing, or if you had to do like physical meditation, so you had to go for longer runs, longer working out, like the more you worked out parts of your body, you felt the clarity come through. Parts of the weekend, the clarity, working through your emotions, working through the things that were coming through. Hopefully you did. If you haven't, now's the time to do it. Whatever was coming through was meant to provide that clarity. So many of us, either early in the week, I didn't really get too much during the new moon. I got it more after the Mars rebirth time frame. So like I was talking to one client on Friday, and finally around 5 o'clock, I'm like, I'm done talking. I don't need to talk anymore. I'm vibrating. I'm like, I got downloads coming through and I need to meditate. And plus my mom wasn't doing well. So it is what it is. But we had certain things that came through in our meditation, in the energy, in the moment, whether it was in the physical sense or the intuitive sense, letting us know where that change needed to happen next, where the direction is now. And parts of this week is going to be about recognizing that direction and feeling some type of pressure or push. So let's talk about Monday. Monday, we are starting really early. I've got this at 4:15 a.m. Central Standard Time, November 20th. If you are, just adjust for your time zone. I apologize. I went blank for a second. At this moment at 4:15 a.m., the moon is just about to perfect into the quarter moon. So we have Mars and the Sun at 27 degrees. The moon has already passed its square with Mars, but it hasn't fully passed the square with the Sun. So we are perfecting into the quarter moon. This goes the most exact around 4:30 to 4:45 time frame. Many of us, we're either having a hard time sleeping overnight, Sunday night going into Monday, or we're feeling an anxiety. We can be feeling a pressure. We can be feeling called or pulled to make a decision, confirming something. And many of us are going to need to deal with something first thing in the morning. Now, this is where I was saying before, parts of the pressure of this week is going to come in layers. By the time the moon perfects through the quarter moon and goes into Pisces, now it's going to go into Pisces at 8:29 a.m. Central Standard Time. And then it'll go into Pisces and start its conjunction to Saturn. Now, this is going to perfect between 8:30 and 10:30 in the morning. So we very much feel like we need to talk to the boss. Some of us already having meetings scheduled. And part of the night before was like feeling anxious, like, I don't know what we're going to go over, or we're making sure all of the numbers are right to go over it. We're prepared for something. Some of us, we're going to have to call the doctor. We're calling a judge. We're calling an attorney. We're talking to our elders. We're trying to set something in stone. We're talking about our responsibility. Again, in America, we're going into a holiday this week. We're going into Thanksgiving. So a lot of us are trying to prepare. Like, okay, so what's your plan? Are you making a dish? These are some of the responsibility aspects. We have something going on first thing Monday morning. Many of us can be feeling a pressure overnight to do that thing first thing Monday morning. You're feeling a pressure on the body, so you're waiting until Monday morning to call the doctor. Some people, that Sun-Mars effect, I said this last week, we had something going on in the body. We felt that pressure literally in the body. Flu-like symptoms. Some of it was like squishing us from like pressure, like quite literally pressure. So you're like, you had moments where you felt like from your head down, like everything was being pushed. We felt something. And there is the need to talk to an authority figure, talk to the responsible person, talk to the responsible party, get some direction, get something cleared up, get something clued in. Now, given the way that we go from quarter moon to immediately the moon conjunct Saturn, there's something about the overnight, Sunday night into Monday, that for a lot of people, I feel like whatever it is about Monday morning, that this has a tie-in to what will take place on the 22nd once the sun hits the square to Saturn. So this can initiate a buildup energy. We're already going into a quarter moon, so there can already be a buildup in general. But we're initiating some part that it's time for something. It's time to recognize something. It's time to deal with something. It's time to call somebody. It's time to do something different. It's time to confirm a plan, confirm an idea, confirm a responsibility. Okay. After the moon Saturn conjunction, so after whatever we're dealing with in these early morning hours, it's not the same anymore. Like, there can be a continuation of certain energies that continue between, in the mid-afternoon right here, so between 3:15 and 3:38 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's why I stopped right here. The sun will actually perfect a sextile to Pluto. Pluto, again, is in Saturn's sign, and the moon is still within that conjunction range of Saturn. So there can be a continuous feed of whatever came through from the early morning. But whenever it comes to like the busyness that comes from moon transits, not going to feel so busy. The sun in a sextile to Pluto can be recognizing something that we're scared of. It can be recognizing something that we need to change, something that we need to transform. It can be shedding light on something. It can be a little triggering, especially if we're dealing with an elder that has not been doing well the last few days or the last few weeks. There can be something that comes through that can be a little bit of a click, like, oh. Remember, Pluto being in Saturn's sign, we're building up to the sun and the Mars square to Saturn. That's going to happen this week. There can be that morning call to a doctor, that morning call to an official, that morning call to somebody, and it goes, okay, great, well, go do this. Go in for an x-ray, go in for a scan, go into the bank, go into this place, go do this next. And there can be direction from the morning that leads to something in the afternoon, something that needs to be understood. Sextiles are meant to be helpful. This is going to be a sextile between the feminine signs, between Scorpio and Capricorn. So there can be a critical understanding, an emotional understanding, wanting to confirm something. Again, we can ask just a simple question in the morning, and we don't get the answer until the afternoon. You text your family member, be like, okay, what time are you arriving? But they're at work and they're not paying attention, or they work nights and they're not awake yet and they don't answer you until the afternoon. This can be a part of that. There's a continuous energy, though, from that overnight hours of Sunday going into Monday, from Monday morning going into Monday afternoon. Parts of this energy of Monday is confirming and setting the stage for something that's going to happen later this week. Okay. The Sun-Pluto sextile, we're in the energy all day, but it goes the most exact between 3:15 and 3:38. So there can be something that needs a deeper understanding, that needs a deeper look. There is something about scans. There is something about, researching. There is something about investigating. There is something about digging a little bit deeper in some way that kind of comes through this energy. And again, if we're in that investigative mode, if we're in that preparation mode, if we're in that digging a little bit deeper, if we're in that type of mode, if we're dealing with somebody and they're having a health issue and they need a scan, there's going to be some level of understanding and potentially confirmation that comes through in the next few days. So if there's something in this energy that feels triggering, like I'm scared that something's going to happen, I'm scared that they're going to tell me this, be prepared for the worst, hope for the best. If you have natal placements in these areas, you're going to feel this a lot deeper. And by these areas, I mean the 27 to 29 degrees of Capricorn, the 25, just because of the new moon and the Mars rebirth energy, the 25 to 29 degrees of Scorpio, the 0, 1 to 2 degrees of Sagittarius, the 0, 1 to 2 degrees of Pisces. If you have placements in these areas, you're likely going to feel this more than somebody that doesn't have placements here. Okay. Moving this along. Moving. In the later evening, we get a sextile between the moon and Jupiter. So this actually goes the most exact between 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time and 11:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I've got this Monday, November the 20th at 10:15 p.m. Here is the moon at 8 degrees and 7 minutes, and it is in almost its exact sextile with Jupiter at 8 degrees and 10 minutes. The moon is in Jupiter's sign. Jupiter is retrograde. So these two are moving towards each other. So we're having a hopeful connection, a positive connection. We're talking about some of the things that are about to happen. We're getting an understanding of who's going to be going where. Some people were talking about what's gone on over the course of the day. So we're getting feedback from somebody, or we're letting them know your perspective. And if they've dealt with similar situations in the past, we're getting their perspective. The sun is still in that sextile to Pluto. We're getting into an energy where we're about to deal with a lot more Jupiterian things. So again, we're recognizing where change has been. We're putting a plan together of where we can start to rebuild some hope, where we can start to rebuild some trust, where we're going to be doing something next. And there will be something very much confirming additional layers to what's going to happen later this week. Because it's the moon and Jupiter sign making a sextile to Jupiter itself, I feel like we're confirming a lot of things. There's helpful connections, positive connections. We're talking to somebody about, I'm so scared that this is going to go a certain way. Well, I remember whenever I had to deal with that with so-and-so, or if I had to deal with that myself. And we're getting that refreshed, hopeful perspective from another person. Okay. After the moon hits this sextile with Jupiter, not a whole lot going on. We start going into Tuesday. We go into Tuesday, and In the early morning hours, I only bring up Anticias whenever I feel like they are pertinent. This week had one. It actually has more than one. There's two that I feel like are going to be very important. So we have one right here. The moon is going to make an Antiscia with Venus between roughly at 11:48 a.m. I've got it at 11:15. What this means is that if I was to fold the charts at this summer solstice, winter solstice line, and I was to layer Pisces on top of Libra, the mathematical number between the moon and Venus would equal 30 degrees. And we get into what's known as a shadow opposite. So we can have some part of Tuesday morning where we're having a frustration with somebody else and they don't even know it. We're learning in some way about an action or an activity that somebody else isn't aware of. And the only reason I feel like this one's important is because while the moon is going through that energy, it's also entering a square with Mercury. Now, the Mercury square moon, it's going to go the most exact between noon, so 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Mercury is in Jupiter's sign. The moon is in Jupiter's sign. Again, what does Jupiter rule in your chart? Where is your natal Jupiter? These are going to play into the themes of the energy. What's Jupiter doing? Jupiter is retrograde and going back over areas of the sky that it hasn't been in since earlier this summer. Where it's at right now. 8 degrees of Taurus. Jupiter was there around, I'm thinking, June? So we can have some similar things from June that's coming back around. Not necessarily. It might be just talking to some people that you've known since June, that you met since June. It's going back over certain topics. There's no heaviness about June that I feel it comes through, but there is some things where we will be having a conversation with someone and they're going to not like the idea of something. They're going to have a little bit of a disgust in some ways. Like, ooh, why are you going over there? I'm going to go over to grandpa over here. Like, I'm going to dad's. Why are you going to mom? Because I'm going to mom. Oh. We're emphasizing a discussion. We're talking about a decision. And in some way, somebody's going to be like, In some ways, it's going to be something completely different. You're going to a meeting like, okay, well, we've decided we're going to go with these appliances all the way through the rest of all of the houses that we build. Because I used to be in home building and I like my real estate references. And there's always going to be somebody's like, oh, why are you using Whirlpool? Why don't you use Samsung? Why don't you use something smarter? Why don't you use something else? Oh, we're only going to go with stainless steel. Don't you like the new stuff? There's a gunmetal version now. Like, everybody suddenly got an opinion. And in some ways, somebody might not like the aesthetic, like the direction, like the opinion of someone else's decision. This isn't heavy. It actually feels really petty in a lot of ways. Like, oh, you're going over there. Oh, you're wearing that. Oh, that's the color you dyed your hair. Oh. Well, whatever makes you happy. Like, there's just like a pettiness there. And I can't explain this in any other way. Mercury in Sagittarius is already, we're a little boastful with our words anyways. Just be aware that if you're too boastful, you're too prideful, you're too hot-headed. I don't feel like this is a hot-headed energy, but I feel like very quickly you can say something in the wrong tone, in the wrong way, and somebody's going to take it the wrong way. You don't even mean it the way that it's being perceived, but it's very, very likely like they're going to take it that way. Okay. A lot of what we're dealing with on Tuesday is still kind of that continuation from Monday. So a lot of people, if we made a decision, if we made a confirmation, if we had a certain kind of appointment, this again is kind of a feed off of and a continuation and a build-up energy. Now, as we continue through Tuesday, there's two things that's going to be going exact, and they're not exact right now, but one, we are now at the last day of the sun in Scorpio. We are aware we're doing something one way for the last time. Somebody can say something that is rather hurtful in that Mercury moon square that, again, they probably didn't mean it in a hurtful way. But if they've been an ass for quite some time, you can be like, you know what? We don't need to talk anymore. That's fine. You want to go hang out with dad and dad's side of the family? That's fine. You do you. I don't need this. And you can have that little moment of like emotionally going, cut. No. Not doing this with you. Not going to deal with your behavior. Not going to deal with your attitude. Not going to deal with your bullshit. This can be parts of that. Some other element in a more positive sense would be telling somebody your decision and knowing that you're transitioning after that. Knowing that we're going to be in a mode this week where we're both simultaneously letting something go, doing something for the last time, doing something that we're not going to do anymore. We're completing a project, we're completing something, knowing that as soon as this is done, we're going to transition and start something new. Not everybody's going to be in holiday mode. Not everybody's going to be dealing with things in that way. So many of us will hit a transition in certain parts of the energy. Now, Mars will make an exact sextile to Uranus between 6:50 p.m. and 7:23 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I've got this now November 21st at 7:15 p.m. Central Standard Time. Mars, 28 degrees, 18 minutes, is in a sextile with Pluto at 28 degrees and 18 minutes. So this is the most exact on the screen. Simultaneously, once Mars hits the sextile with Pluto, the moon will also be going through a sextile with Uranus. So this is interesting. This is sporadic for some people. For some people, this can be rather challenging. Even though these are sextiles, I feel like this is emotionally challenging. We've got Mars in Scorpio, the moon in Pisces. The moon is also coming into a conjunction with Neptune. That's not going to go exact on Tuesday. It happens in the overnight hours going into Wednesday. But there is an energy here that has a bit of a buildup to it. We're seeing the next round of something. We're experiencing something. Maybe we saw something with the sun sextile with Pluto, like, I'm really scared that this is how this is going to go, or I'm really scared that something's going to happen in the next few days. I really feel like something's about to change. Mars is action. Mars is activity. Something that we could have voiced the day before that, like, I'm kind of nervous that this is about to happen. I'm kind of nervous about tomorrow, but at the same time, I'm really excited. I don't know how everything is going to go, but I know I'm about to do something different. I know this is going to start picking up. I know business is about to change. I know this is going to have a bigger effect. I know. For some people, knowing something's about to happen and knowing that we're going into change, you're getting anxious. And there can be some anxiety to Tuesday evening. That anxiety is probably not new. I don't feel like we're having something new given how quickly we go from Sun sextile Pluto to Mars sextile Pluto. And considering overnight going into the 22nd, the Sun is going to enter Jupiter's sign and immediately hit that square to Saturn, while Mars has been going through the sextile with Pluto. This feels like we're anxious, feeling that anxiety, seeing that shift, seeing that change, feeling this pressure about to set in. And we are going to, a lot of us, deal with this pressure of an unknown, of the uncharted territory, of something we've never thought about before, of something we've never dealt with before, going into Wednesday. Now, again, here in America, because I didn't realize how many people I have listening to me in other countries, by the way. Hey, I've learned a lot in the last 2 weeks by booking readings. Like, here in America, we're going into a holiday. We're traveling into this uncharted territory. We're hopping on a plane and we know we're about to meet our significant other's family for the first time. We know that something's been going on with our elder, but we ain't been the one responsible for it. We ain't been the one dealing with it. We have not physically seen the effects of something. So we can be talking on Tuesday evening and going, okay, so an action of tomorrow. We're going to be on the plane. We're going to pack all of our stuff. I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to get all the food to make the dish. I've got everything on my reports all set up, and I do this presentation tomorrow. We're doing this part tomorrow. We're taking something to the next step tomorrow. And there can be an excitement, but there can also be an anxiety. Be prepared for both. Some of us, we look at excitement and we're feeling good about certain things. Some of us, any type of change just makes us nervous. And I know that. There is an energy of both anxiousness and excitement. Either way, we're dealing with emotional things going from Tuesday into Wednesday. Now, Tuesday's not heavy though. It just feels like a buildup. It feels like a buildup of pressure. In the overnight hours going into the 22nd, which will be the start of Sagittarius season, the moon in Pisces still will make a conjunction to Neptune. Now, this goes the most exact, therefore we will feel it the most between, I was looking at this, 1:30 and 4 a.m. Central Standard Time. I've got this at 2:15 a.m. at the moon, 24 degrees, 38 minutes, making a conjunction to Neptune at 24 degrees and 56 minutes. The other thing I want to bring up about this Moon-Neptune conjunction is this is the last Moon-Neptune conjunction before Neptune turns direct. Neptune is stationing. I think it's December 6th, 5th, 6th, something there. That's when Neptune will turn direct. So there can be a lingering effect, a lingering emotion, a lingering situation. For some people, this is not a positive thing. So this can be a lingering lie there because the fogginess of Neptune, a lingering confusion that's kind of like weighing in. We know we're going into uncharted territory. We know we're going to be doing something. We know we're meeting the family. We know we're meeting with the boss. We know we're going somewhere. We know we're transitioning. But again, there can be an anxiety based off the fogginess. You know what you're doing, but you don't know the steps. You've never been in this place before, so you don't know where you're going to exactly be. You don't know where your safe place is going to be. You don't know where all of your emergency exits are. You don't know who you can trust yet. You don't know who you're going to vibe with. So again, there can be elements of anxiety. If we're dealing with something with an elder, there can be an internal trigger. If we're dealing with somebody that's having an immune system issue, this can be an internal trigger. If you're not dealing with any of those things, this can also be a very heavy dream night. And I mean, Tuesday night going into Wednesday, we can have those, again, intuitive dreams, those intuitive downloads. We can have some things set in. For some people, where if you have the holiday things going on and you've already started the travel process, this is like that nostalgic thing of like, okay, we're going to put up all these decorations and this is how we've always done it. And this is what we're doing. And that can be a part of the pressure, but that doesn't have to be a negative pressure. We're trying to recreate something This can be inspirational. We get an idea of what we're going to do the next day. Some of us, we're going to be doing it later in the day, going into Wednesday. But there's a lot of activity going on. For many of us, this is still that continuation of what was going on Tuesday evening. This can be an interesting dream night for people. I don't know about you guys, but the dreams have been real this last week. Now, there's something interesting. After the moon hits this conjunction to Neptune, it's going to go a little bit further. It'll sextile Pluto. Not really locked onto the Pluto sextile per se, but it's also going to trine Mars. Mars here, 28 degrees. I've got this at 9:15 a.m. Here's the moon in this trine, still separating from its conjunction with Neptune. This can be seeing a flooding effect, seeing an oozing effect. There's something moving. There's a fluidity to it. We feel this transition. We're feeling this movement. We're feeling something take shape. As the moon is in this trine with Mars, the sun goes into Jupiter's sign and immediately starts its square to Saturn. Now, we will be in the Sun-Saturn square both Wednesday and Thursday. Both days! Both days. There can be an arrival. The sun is the ego. Saturn is the responsibility. The sun is us as an individual in a lot of ways. Saturn is the authority figure. It is the responsibilities. It is the elder. There is something in this energy where we need to see something. And it's going to have an immediate follow-through effect later this week once Mars hits the square with Saturn. There's a fluidity, there's a flow, there's fluid movements in the body. We can see certain things going on in the real life, and I hate saying it this way, but knock on wood. It's wood. I installed it. I know what it is. So knock on wood. There can be those moments of I hate this, a burst pipe. Something that challenges what we're about to do, that takes time away from the day, that creates a frustration and a hostility that we need to wrap this up. Oh my God, this wasn't supposed to happen. Oh my God, this can be such a pain in the ass. How did this happen? There's something very fluid-like going on. Whether it's in the body, whether it's something going on in the world around you, whether it's something going on with the vehicle, we can be arriving somewhere, but this is all happening also at 0 degrees. So whatever fluidity that we're flowing into, whatever we're flowing into, wherever we're arriving, this is supposed to be the start of something big, the start of something new, the start of a new tradition, the start of a new timeline. We just went through the Mars rebirth. This week is the start of a new 2-year cycle. I didn't say that in the intro, and I just realized that. But it is. It is the start of the new 2-year cycle. The new 2-year cycle that will carry us all the way into January of 2024 when the next Mars rebirth happens. We're in a transitional energy, and we are starting a new cycle. Again, many of us are going to be doing something this week. A lot of us. Over the course of the next few weeks, we're going into new energy. We're going into new territory. We're going into the new job. We're going into a new position. We're taking on a new role, whether that is in your physical family, whether that is in your place in society. People going into government think of it that way. You're going to work for nonprofits or something like that. We're ascending. We're going into a new role. This is the start of something. This week has a starting energy to it. And again, we're going into uncharted territory. So there's a fluid motion of just flowing into where we're going next. There can be pressure. There can be something that comes to light regarding an authority figure, regarding an elder, regarding tradition, regarding responsibility, regarding beliefs, regarding faith. There can be a certain amount of pressure that arises. Now, as Wednesday progresses, the moon will go into Aries at 11:20 a.m. Central Standard Time. I've got this at 12:15. Right as the moon goes into Aries, it will enter a trine with the sun, while the sun is in that square to Saturn. Whatever is starting to build up, whatever the pressure is, there is immediate activity and busyness that follows. There's a triggering energy of we need to do this next thing. We're going into this place. You're going to, let me show you the tour. Let me give you a tour around the house. Let me take you here. Let me take you here. If you're going to somebody's family's event for the first time, a lot of times, I remember this happened with my ex-husband. We went to a whole different town. I'm country bumpkin. I'm from a small town. Population of less than 5,000 people, small town, but I live in a bigger city now. Whenever I was with my ex-husband, like we lived in the bigger city. But going to small town, the first time I ever drove him through there, I'm from a small town that whenever you drove by somebody, we waved. It's a country thing. Do you know them? No. Keep driving. Wave. Who is that? I don't know. Drive by this one, there's this one house, this old man lived there for years, and every time, I never met him, I never talked to him, but for 20 years, I just wave, hi, hey, it's a small town thing. It just boggled my ex-husband's mind. He's just like, did you know who that was? No. But in a small town, that's not what matters. Like, nobody cares about that. It's just one of those things that you just kind of do it. So as we've arrived into something new, as we're taking on this new energy, as we're going into this new position, as we're going into this new job, as we're doing this whatever is new, there is an immediate activity involved. And again, now the moon is in Aries. For the next 2.5 days, there is something about this energy that every time I've meditated on it, I keep getting the exact same thing, is that it shows a glimpse, a foreshadowing of where we're going to experience the changes in the next eclipse season. There is a foreshadowing in these few days. And that is specific because we just had the Mars rebirth. So, if you're going to meet your significant other's family for the first time, if you're going into this new job, if you're going into an interview, because some people are just going into the interview now, very likely you're going to get that position very quickly. You're going to see that the transition tied to that very, very quickly. For some people, you're going to have like a little slap of reality when the sun hits that square to Saturn going, I don't think this is right. And what's going to happen later is when Mars hits that square to Saturn, again, it's going to show you something isn't right. There will be pressure. For some people, this is going to be the pressure of going into the uncharted territory in a positive way. For some people, this is going to be the pressure of going into the uncharted territory in a bit more of a negative way. It's still uncharted territory. It's still uncharted territory. Okay. The moon goes into Aries. It hits that trine to the sun. It is the most exact basically between 11 a.m. Central Standard Time and 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. After that, it's not that much of a thing. Mars and Pluto are separating. Mars is going to hit that 29-degree mark, and we are going to be in an energy, again, for the next few days of like knowing we're letting something go and a new thing is arriving, a new passion is arriving, a new responsibility is arriving, a new role is coming to recognition. Okay. The only other thing that really kind of happens, and this happened earlier in the morning, or this happens right here around the late evening. Sorry, I have AM written down. I just realized it's PM. The moon in Aries is going to hit a Contra-Antiscia with Neptune. We can have something we talked about the night before. You know, we're excited, that activity, we have that follow through, we're going into the new place, we're arriving somewhere, we know we're doing something new. And some element of it we're talking about again going into Wednesday evening, or we're seeing the physical effect of something. There can be an effect, remember, with Neptune. It can cloud our judgment, it can cloud our senses. In some ways we can feel, I don't want to say relief, but we can feel an excitement. We can feel an anxiety. We can feel our drive. We can feel a motivation. We can feel an ambition. That again comes to light, that we know, like, okay, this is where I want to be. This is how I want to do things. This is what I want to do next. And there can be something over these next few days that can be a build-up energy, a hot-headed energy. There's gonna be some hot-headed things going on because the moon is in a fire sign, specifically it's in Aries. Mercury is in a fire sign and it's in its detriment. We are all going into uncharted territory. Be prepared to stick your foot in your mouth. Be prepared to see other people to stick their foot in their mouth. It's gonna be an interesting few days, and if you're an American, you're celebrating Thanksgiving, it's gonna be an interesting holiday. We gonna make some memories. Sometimes you make that lasting impression. Oh, now, in the overnight hours going into the 23rd, the moon, of course, is still going to be in Aries all day. That is when the Sun-Saturn square goes the most exact. Now, this is going to go the most exact between 3:27 p.m. I'm sorry, p.m. a.m. 3:27 a.m. Central Standard Time and 3:50 a.m. Central Standard Time. So here is the Sun, 0 degrees, 48 minutes, squaring Saturn at 0 degrees and 49 minutes. Again, if we're doing a holiday, we know we got to get up early the next morning to make sure that the turkey is going, or the ham is going, or whatever your holiday tradition is. Ours has always been a ham. Christmas is always Christmas tacos. Like, it's a weird thing that we do. We know we're taking on our responsibility. We know we're shifting into something. We know we need to do something. And many of us, this is going to be about the holiday. Now, there's nothing real specific to the moon in Aries right now, where I feel like where there's more likely to be some interesting energy. And I do mean this is interesting. The moon is in Mars' sign. Mars is at 29 degrees of Aries. Some of us know we don't want to go to the holiday. Some of us know we're not going to be doing some things the same way anymore. Some of us know once we see Grandpa and once we see the physical condition, once we see what has gone on, again, if you're going to a family event and you have not been the person taking care of that family member that's been in the decline situation, then seeing them for the first time, we suddenly become very, very aware, like, oh, you can see it. You can feel it in your heart. You can feel it in the energy. There's a lot of times you're in that moment, you're like, you just know you're doing this event this way for the last time. We're in that, we become very, very aware that the holiday seasons are going to be changing, either over the course of this holiday season or over the course of the next year. Like, there's going to, you can see it and you can feel it. Having done this before, You know when you're spending a certain holiday with that family member for the last time. Now, I'm saying this in the health sense. Some of y'all are on the rocks with your marriages or in your relationship. You know it's going to be different after this. Some of you, you're not on the rocks. Again, the transition energy is you're going into the new family responsibility. And you know, after you've seen just how everything is vibing and how fun it is, because some people are having fun right now, you know that once you're in this energy, you're like, I don't want to go back to the old way. I don't want to be in that mindset anymore. I don't want to go back to the way my family does it. My family's boring. They don't want to do anything. This is fun. Some people were going to a Friendsgiving and we're having our first Friendsgiving. And again, having that camaraderie. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do awkward family things anymore. I want to do it this way. I want to do it my way. I want to do it this way. So we have this moment of just knowing we're doing something new for the first time, but knowing that after we've experienced it, after we've been in this event, after we've been in these energies, that the old way is not the way we want to do things anymore. Now, add a layer to this. While you're having these conversations with certain people, while you're having these moments of camaraderie and these moments of fun, there's going to be some very interesting conversations and topics. So I'm getting this to the later part of the day on Thursday, and then I'm going to leave it alone. Yeah. Between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., so I'm just past this one, Central Standard Time, the moon is going to hit this opposition to Venus. The moon is in Mars' sign. Again, Mars is at the 29-degree mark of Scorpio. We're recognizing this new balance. Venus is in her sign. Venus is going through a reset. Mars is in its own sign. But Mars has just had a reset. Mars has just had a rebirth. And now Mars is at 29 degrees. There is this recognition of new balance. There is this recognition that something's not going to be the same after this weekend, after these energies, after these moments. There's going to be something that transitions. Some of us are going to have these moments where we're having another opportunity come through, where we're feeling something else happen. We're feeling really good about certain conversations, and you're having, let's say, that Friendsgiving thing, or you're going to that new holiday thing for the first time and you're talking with these new family members. Your significant other's family members, you're talking with, your friends' family members, you're talking with somebody that you would normally talk to. And new information and new opportunities are coming through. New conversations are being had. We're having a lot more of a boastful, happy energy. There is something really good to this part of the energy. I like Thanksgiving this year, guys. The moon hits the opposition to Venus, and then shortly afterwards, between 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time and 11 p.m., the moon in Aries is going to hit this trine with Mercury. Let's do more this weekend. Let's make some plans to go elsewhere. I know here, I'm sure this happens in every other place too, but I'm just going off of what I know locally. Is like a lot of places here, like we have like Rima Church in Bartlesville. That's my hometown. They have Johnstone Park. They have all these different parks. Pretty sure Muskogee, Castle Muskogee, like all these places. Like you get to Thanksgiving night, and then all these places turn on their Christmas lights. This is my example. This is just my example. But we have this moment of like, there's so much going on and we're having so much excitement. We're having so much fun. Some of us, somebody is going to say something along the lines of, we should do something more the next day. We should do this the next day. Some of us, we're having a moment of getting our strategy together for our Black Friday shopping because we know the next day there's going to be some activity. I'm saying activity and I'm making that sound very, very like light. I don't know how light this is going to be. I think this is going to be a very interesting Black Friday. If you're the Black Friday shopper, this is strategy. This is getting together with your sisters or your cousins or whoever you do your stuff with, your mother-in-law, your whoever, and we're making a plan of action. Please note how I said that. We're taking something to the next level. We're looking at what our strategy is, considering we have Venus and Mercury both in this part of the transit. There can be something financial there. There can be something mercantile there. There can be gifts there. And considering we're getting so many things going into Jupiter signs, there can be this thing about giving and helping, sharing the wealth, sharing the abundance, sharing prosperity. Some of you guys are having really great conversations and like, well, if you guys ever need help with this, I'm a mechanic. I do these types of things. I can help you out. And we can have this different, sudden opportunity with certain people based off of the new connections that are being had. Like, well, let's talk about it more tomorrow. Well, show me your shop in the morning. Show me your classic cars. Show me this. Well, let's do something in the morning. We don't need to do it right now. But there's something specific. And there's a build up into the energy going into Friday. And for some people, Friday is going to be very transformative. For some people, Friday is going to be very triggering and very hot-headed. And again, if we're doing the Black Friday shopping... anyways, you already know where I'm thinking. Let's just go ahead and take it into that. So, after the Moon, opposition to Venus, Moon, trine to Mercury, there's not a whole lot going on, but there is still a lot of a boastful, happy, helpful vibrance in the energy. I feel vibrance is a good word. Keep moving this forward. In the overnight hours, in the 24th, Mars is going to enter Sagittarius, and as soon as it does, it will also enter the square to Saturn. For Friday, Mars and the Sun will both have an equal type of square to Saturn. You can see this right here. Mars is at 0 degrees 1 minute, hitting that square to Saturn. The Sun is at 1 degrees 54 minutes. They're both within a degree in their square to Saturn. We have the next layer of pressure, the next layer in the activity, the next layer of doing something. Where we could have been actually having a decent time the night before, we might not be having so much of a fun time as we get into Friday. Where everybody was kind of vibing a certain way the night before, the next day can be a little bit more different. I don't know how I feel about this, guys. Because in the real world effect, Mars hitting a square to Saturn, this is combative. This is argumentative. This can be explosive. But at the same time, we're in Jupiter signs and Jupiter is retrograde. So there can be actions and a push towards accepting a responsibility. There can be more actions and a push to do the next part of what we're starting next. Whatever we're starting next is a part of the turnaround energy, and it's a part of our transition energy, and it's a part of where we're going next. There can be some heaviness, weightedness, frustration, trigger type energy to Friday. One part of that is because of the Sun and Mars in an equal square to Saturn. You can see that's really tight right here at this 5:15 time frame. The other part is going to come through in a few hours from here, and actually comes through closer to like 10:30, 11:30. So let me get to that point, and I'll show you why I'm saying that. So I've got this November 24th at 12:15 p.m. Central Standard Time, so Friday afternoon. Again, the Sun and Mars, they've had this square to Saturn. We need you to take a responsibility. We need somebody to do the right thing. We're pushing for something to change. In some ways, Saturn is pulling Mars, going, hey, take a look at this. And there's an action and activity here. However, once we get to this part of the afternoon, again, this is the most exact between 10:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Pluto, who's in Saturn's sign, is going to square the moon, who's in Mars's sign. Okay? Mars and Saturn are in a square in Jupiter's sign. I'm going to say it again. What does Jupiter rule in your charts? Where is your natal Jupiter? There can be a push to turn something around, to change something, to start something anew. There can be a pull, an energetic pull to take an action, to own up to a certain responsibility, to do something different, to do something new. In some ways, in the last few days, we have realized the one way we've done something is not going to continue to be that way anymore, and that something is going to be different moving forward. This energy, while so many people are not necessarily going to be at work, if you have a normal 9-to-5 job, bank hour type job, this is heavy. If you are in the medical field, this is not a fun week. Rednecks, pay attention to your turkey fryers and everything that you consume. Accidents can happen. Accidents can happen. There is something to Friday that is not fun in the earlier hours. And there can be tensions, and there can be frustrations, there can be issues going on within the family, within the neighborhood, within the community, while you're out shopping, while you're out trying to do your Black Friday stuff. You can see that combative type of behavior. We can see these pressures start to build. If you do something where you're like getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, by the time we get to noon, and you're not used to doing these types of hours, you can be a little bitchy. I said what I said. It happens. This energy is a lot of pressure. This energy is going to be triggering. And again, if you have people in your life that they work in the medical fields, Friday, not fun. Parts of Thursday evening cannot be fun, but I don't feel like it's that way. I feel like we're in a good vibe Thursday evening, and then we get to something on Friday, and the lingering fights from the night before, like, you know what you said last night? That really pissed me off. Well, why didn't you say something last night? Because I didn't want to say it in front of Grandma. So we're taking it out the next morning. And again, there's a combativeness, there's a frustration, there's a trigger. There's something here. It's going to be interesting. Now, after the moon's square with Pluto, the moon is going to go void. And some element of where we're at in this energy is like, you got a problem with this? We can take it inside. We can go talk to Grandma. No, I don't want to do this in front of Grandma. I don't really care. Some of us are going to go have this hot, heated conversation with the brother, the uncle, the dad. We're talking to our future mother-in-law. We're talking to that cousin. We're talking to somebody. We're going to be in this little moment of energy, and all of a sudden we're like going back in, going, hey, can we talk? And you're grabbing your significant other. We're grabbing that other person. Or we're waiting for them to come home. We may internally make this decision like, oh, you have a problem. I will be talking to my person about this later. That later, based off the chart, probably going to be somewhere between 3 and 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because at exactly 2:29 p.m., the moon is going to go into Taurus. The moon is going to go into Venus' sign. The moon is going to go into a different place, and it's immediately going to hit a sextile with Saturn. It's also going to be in conjunct Mars. It's going to be out of Mars' sign, and there's this energy of like, I need to go talk to my person. I need to let them know what just happened. I need to let them know what has occurred. In some ways, if we've just done the shopping all day, it's like coming home and we're like, okay, I spent this much on the credit card, babe. I just need you to be aware of that. Like, oh, well, I'm glad everybody else is having a good Christmas. Some of it's going to not be so heavy. Some of us, we're going to have some type of energy that has played out earlier in the day that immediately we need to talk to somebody about it, because they're not going to be completely aware of what has just occurred, of somebody else's intention, of somebody else's actions, of somebody else's energy. There's something that we're not aware of that comes to light, that comes to the surface. Based off of the energy at play, it comes the most exact between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. However, the human effect is it can come through at any other point. But in some ways, I feel like we get into parts of Friday afternoon and we are talking about an action or an activity of somebody else that they didn't know about. It can be the activity that has already occurred, or if we've still been in this like fun catch-up mode, because not everybody's going to go through combative energy. If we've been having this fun catch-up mode, like everybody's doing stuff together, then it's just kind of filling in the blanks. So it doesn't always have to be heavy. It doesn't always have to be triggering. It doesn't always have to be the worst, but there can be energies here of filling in the blank. That's the best way I can describe it. Okay. After the moon sextile with Saturn, there ain't a whole lot more going on to Friday. So we're just kind of vibing. We're chilling. Once the moon goes into Taurus, people want to stabilize. People want to have that moment where we're just kind of being with our fat pants and watching TV, and we want to chill. And the rest of Friday evening kind of goes into chill mode. Saturday, still going to kind of be in a chill mode. In the early morning hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to hit this conjunction to Jupiter. If the moon was still in Aries while the Mars-Saturn square perfected, then I wouldn't necessarily say being chill mode. There is something that's meant to be helpful. Now, the moon is making a conjunction to Jupiter. Mars and Saturn are in their square in Jupiter signs. There can still be an arrival. There can still be a revealing. There can still be somebody getting caught with their hand in the cookie jar. There can still be a discovery. There can still be a meeting. There can still be something coming through in your dreams. There can still be something that comes to light in this time span. There can still be a connection. I don't mind this energy with the moon being in Taurus. There can be a pressure to do something, to take a responsibility, but I feel like this is going to be a little bit more of a Venusian responsibility, that this is a little bit more hopeful, and we're feeling the buildup towards the full moon that's actually going to perfect Sunday overnight going into Monday. So we're feeling more of the buildup. We're feeling more things come through. In some ways it's hopeful. In some ways it's boastful. Some of us we're doing certain things. We're feeling the connections. We're getting more and more people involved. There is this energy of mass and masses. So we start to recognize a bigger picture. We're starting to feel the amp up in the energy, and this really does feel good. I like Saturday's energy per se. There's a per se here. The reason I'm saying per se is because I'm going to go ahead and take this to the right time span. Around 6:30 a.m., Mercury. It's not doing anything, just to be clear, not yet. It's starting to enter its square with Neptune, but it's not exact. What we do have, however, is Mercury is entering shadow. That's right. Next weekend, Saturday morning specifically, Mercury is entering shadow. Mercury is entering shadow right as the Mars-Saturn square is perfecting. There are layers to what happens next weekend. And in some way, in some form, something that we are starting to do, this momentum that is building, this pressure that of taking something to a new level, of ascending into that new role, the recognition of this new level of responsibility. There is something about this energy that speaks to a level up that's going to happen through the full moon. So there's that, because we have the full moon again. That's going to happen overnight, Sunday going into Monday. It's more Monday. But there's also layers saying that whatever is being talked about once we get into Saturday and Sunday, whatever happens Saturday, Sunday, Monday, because Monday the full moon, whatever is going on in these days, there are layers to it, and we will be coming back to them by the end of December, because there's a lot of shit going on the end of December. And I'm going to say this again now. I do not like the holiday travel following Christmas, specifically December 26th through January 1st. I do not like those days. Parts of what can be going on the weekend is making plans to do something in the future. Maybe we're talking about we're going to come back at Christmas. Maybe we're talking about what the next holiday plan is going to be. We're talking about a future event, a future situation. We might start the plans of something next weekend. Those plans, when they occur, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in December. Let's let some things unfold. Just understand, whatever y'all are starting to talk about in your personal lives next weekend, Saturday going into Sunday, it has layers to it, because it's going to take us into a level up energy, a big push in momentum, a big push in a transition. And whatever this big push is, it is a big picture push. It is a part of Jupiter turning direct's push. It's a part of Neptune turning direct push. It is a part of this turnaround of where we're at in the uncharted territory and the things that are culminating. Seeds are planted next weekend to things that are going to come back around, to level up, to come full circle come the end of December. Pay attention to the topics being discussed next weekend. The Mars-Saturn square goes the most exact between 10:36 a.m. and 11:08 a.m. Central Standard Time. I got it at 10:15. And Mercury has just entered shadow. There is something that comes through. There is a plan that is set. There is something very particular about next weekend that has layers to it. Okay. Aside from that part of the morning, because that's when the transit of Mars and Saturn goes the most exact. Aside from that part of the energy, there's not a whole lot going on whenever it comes to Saturday. So again, we can be feeling a certain kind of pressure. We can be feeling a certain incline to make a decision. We can be confirming that we're going to continue in a certain startup, or we can be telling somebody, I never want to do this again. I don't need to meet your family anymore. I don't need to be around these people anymore. I don't like this energy. I don't like the vibe. I don't like these people. There can be a pressure between the Mars-Saturn square. Going, I'm glad you like this. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. There can be something there. Or we're confirming that we're going to come back in a month and things will happen that month. Okay. Now in the overnight hours going into Sunday, the moon is going to hit its conjunction overnight to Uranus between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Central Standard Time. That is when it goes the most exact. I've got this at 1:15. Here's the moon, 20 degrees, 5 minutes. Here is Uranus at 20 minutes, 32 degrees. It is retrograde, of course. We are coming together with something. We are going back over something from the past. We are talking about exciting events. We're telling about people about things that they've never known about before. What's changed? What's different? We're having certain conversations. Some of us are having a hard time sleeping because, again, we are kind of in a build up to a full moon. It's not happening in the early mornings of Sunday morning. We have some type of excitement coming through. If we've just had a weird sleep schedule situation because we did Black Friday shopping, then this moon's conjunction to Uranus is like waking up unexpectedly and wanting to watch TV. Like, okay, I can't sleep anymore, so I'm going to put on a show, but we're familiar with the show. You're walking into the living room to get a drink and everybody's still awake for some reason. Like, oh, what are we watching on TV? Oh, we're watching the Terminator movies. I haven't seen those in forever. We're watching Die Hard. the controversial Christmas movie. We're doing something. There's a little bit of an excitement. For some people, we're just feeling excitement based off of all the energies that have already been at play, and we're just having a hard time sleeping. That's a possibility. We can have something come through. We can have that unexpected phone call in the middle of the night. I don't like that energy. Considering Mercury is entering a square with Neptune, I really don't like that energy. I don't like Mercury-Neptune squares. I don't, because there's something that fogs and clouds our judgment. So if we decided that we're going to go out Saturday night going into Sunday, we have to go out and do something. This can be that moment where we get pulled over. We've decided to do something that clouds our judgment, and then again, we're going to get that sudden bailout call of having to go to the county sheriff and pick somebody up. I don't like that. That's a possibility. Now, in the early morning hours between 8:30 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go through a sextile with Neptune. Mercury is in a square to Neptune, so we're going to be having certain discussions about having an effect. Some of us might be catching somebody in a lie, like they're telling us something we know that damn well that's not how it happened. Some of us, we're going to be hearing about somebody else's lie, somebody else's fallacy, somebody else's situation, and we're going to be struggling to believe part of it. Like, what? And we have to ask some of those fact-checking type things. Some of us felt like a certain pressure with the Mars-Saturn square, and the way that we decided to work through it was to go out, and then the next morning we're like, okay, tell me what happened. And you got to decipher whether they're telling you the truth or not. We're going to struggle with understanding if somebody's telling us the full truth. We're going to struggle with believing certain things. This is going to also lead into some of the effects of the full moon, because that Mercury-Neptune square, it's going to perfect in the full moon's time frame. So we're feeling this amp up in the energy. We're feeling these things come through. There's a lot of activity going on. There's a lot of new things starting. There's a lot of new pressure. Some of us, our brother just stole our significant other. They went to the bar, and the next morning you're seeing the effect of how drunk did you guys get? How much did you drink last night? You don't even drink. I know. But I thought I had to prove a point to him to be a part of your family. Because we always have that ornery family member going, you're not really one of us until you do this. Okay. Between 3 and 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to make a trine to Pluto. Between 6:30 and 9:30 p.m., Saturn is going to square the moon right after the moon changes signs. So there's something in these energies where some parts of what gets triggered in the earlier parts of the day, again, we're trying to decipher if somebody's been telling us the truth or not. We're trying to understand some of the effects of the weekend. We are trying to understand some of the pressures that have just came through. We've got to get an understanding here. The moon in this trine with Pluto is like, we need to change something up. We need to do something different. We need to recognize that somebody else is not who we thought they were. We need to recognize that you two shouldn't hang out all the time. Y'all shouldn't be left alone. I agree. I should not go out with your brother ever. I have a bunch of adopted brothers that they're that brother. They're totally that person. In the afternoon, like I said, Saturn is going to square the moon. The energy is tied to Pluto's trine with the moon and Saturn's square to the moon. While we're building up to this full moon, there's going to be some pressure. There's going to be some heatedness. Some of us, we let other people go off and do their thing, and now other people are having to come in. Like, there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of people going on. Some of us, we're not just dealing with our family's things. We're dealing with our issues, but at the same time, we're voicing our opinions and we're talking to somebody else about their issues, and things are starting to layer up. Things are getting really busy. This is a very busy Sunday evening. Mars is going to square the moon. There is going to be some tension, some frustration. There's going to be some potential combativeness. Saturn is going to square the moon. Mars is still in the square to Saturn. Right after Saturn squared the moon's going to hit that opposition to Mars. And we still haven't even perfected into the full moon. The full moon, again, happens overnight going into Monday. Mercury is in the square to Neptune, and it's building. We're building to a full moon in Mercury sign. There is going to be some exponential, unexpected flurries of activity. There's going to be a lot of things going on. There's going to be a lot of excitement. There's going to be a lot of mental busyness. There's going to be a lot of confusion. There's going to be a lot of like, I need this to make sense. There's going to be a lot of things that are just kind of going hiccup, 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 hiccup. We're not going to bed early on Sunday. We're not. There's a lot of mental activity. There's a lot of physical activity. There's a lot of things going on in this moment. We have 5 planets in Jupiter signs going into a full moon in Gemini. The ruler of Gemini, Mercury, is in Jupiter's sign, and it's in a square to Neptune. We're having a lot of activity going on. We're having a lot of things pop up. We are having a lot of communication. There's a lot of busyness. There's a lot of talking. There's a lot of things. If you're in a commerce situation, this is going to be really great. Like people got your name in their mouth, but in a positive way. Parts of what happened over the holiday is it gave time for more and more people to communicate, like some of the changes, what's different, what's new, where we're going next, how we do things, and yada, 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 yada. And there can be a lot of busyness Sunday night going into Monday as we're getting into the full moon, but there can also be a lot of activity. We can have a lot of flurried things that are just kind of confusing in the moment. Like, where did all this come from? Who are all these people? What are all these conversations that are being happened? Where's all this going to go? Who ordered all this pizza? Like, there's confusion. But there's also a ramp up and an amp up in some activity that can't be ignored. The full moon in Gemini, which I'll do a separate episode on it, of course. If you're having individual readings, I'll talk about this individually on your readings. There's going to be parts of this that I do not feel is a completion. A lot of times full moons are completions. I don't feel like this is a completion energy. I feel like the energy going into the full moon in Gemini, which of course does not happen until actually on Monday. I feel like a lot of where we're about to go is going to be a leveling up energy. It's an amplification. We just had these 2 0-degree squares to Saturn. After this full moon perfects, which this full moon is in a square to Saturn, after this full moon perfects, Saturn will no longer be at that 0-degree mark anymore. There is an amp up. Mars is pushing Saturn. And this is why I was saying, some people, if you're going into the family things and you're going to these family events, you might have that moment where you separate from your significant other, and all of a sudden, the brother or the uncle or whoever in the family that likes to like test your boundaries, he's the one that steps in, and we find these ways to test the boundaries. There's a lot of amp up in the activity. And it's going to lead to a flurry of discussion, a flurry in communication, a flurry level activity. And there are layers to the full moon in Gemini because Mercury just entered shadow. Mercury rules Gemini. Mercury will be in a square to Neptune. There will be 3 squares with Neptune. Each one is different. The first one, Mercury is direct. Not Saturn. Jupiter, not Jupiter either. But Neptune is retrograde. But Neptune is stationing. So we have this first effect where we're reaching a fogginess, we're reaching something we don't recognize, we're reaching something we haven't dealt with before. But after Neptune turns direct, that fogginess goes away. The thing is, the second Mercury-Neptune square, Mercury will be retrograde, and it will include a conjunction to Mars. Mars is already busy right now in its square to Saturn. There are layers to this ascension energy because a lot of us are ascending into something as we go into this full moon in Gemini. There is a exponential, unexpected, for some people spiritual, in some ways exponential and astronomical, but there's something that is leveling us up as we continue through this week and go into the full moon in Gemini. And again, this week isn't even the full moon, but it gets us right before it. Sunday night going into Monday, there's not going to be a whole lot of sleeping. It's going to be a late night. There's going to be a lot of activity. There's going to be a lot of disruption. Pivotal disruption or chaotic disruption. There is disruption. There will be these things that cloud our judgment. The thing about Mercury, whenever it's going through Jupiter signs, is hope tends to take over a little bit more. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be hopeful, but I do feel like there's going to be some unexpected decisions, unexpected breakthroughs as we get into the later parts of next week. There's going to be things that we are not anticipating. There's going to be buildups of pressure. We need the buildup of pressure. We need this thing to take shape. We need these next fluid things to come through to make sense of what is going to be a big part of the next 2 months in the transition. We need parts of this week to understand where we're going next into the next eclipse season. Where we're going to have that gain, where we're going to have transition, where we're going to next. This week reveals that. I said before, last week and this week they're arguably 2 of the biggest weeks of the year. But the way that they come through and the way things come to light and the way things get presented are not necessarily going to be immediately recognizable. We need the whole timeline to make sense of things. We're in the middle of a timeline right now. The energy and the mental activity and the stagnancy that we've still kind of been in, that flow changes this week. The levels change this week. Our attention, our focus, our drive, our purpose, our desires, they change this week. So much is coming to light. We've already had the first rounds of it. Now we're going to see the next rounds with activity involved. So I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for the ones that have already booked your readings. Like I said, I've got another round of readings that are going to come out this week. Parts of what I covered in this week's episode based off your individual charts. I'll go over those in more details to give you more expectations. There will be more emphasis on some of the readings and stuff that I do later, but this month I've been wanting to put more emphasis on the natal chart reading just to kind of help everybody out. If you have questions, if you have concerns, if you're wanting, any more additional guidance, feel free to message me. You can message me through WhatsApp. You can email me. You can message me through Instagram. You can message me through Facebook. I've been putting the links to those in the description, so you should be able to find those with exception to WhatsApp. I can't do a link to that. I thought I could. But anyways, I love and appreciate every single one of you. It's going to be a very interesting week. I hope to hear from everybody what's been going on in your life. And just understand, whatever starts to unfold this week, it is going to come through in layers, because it is going to start to show us what's going to be unfolding next month in the Mercury retrograde. So it's a big week, guys. I'll talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.